Guru Nation, thank you for watching. We're going to address a very timely topic, and that is, I've been getting asked versions of this question. I've been approached by people at SOS in person, shaking my hand, on Zooms, in client calls, myself and Chris Sauber. We help sites get studies, we help sites get started, we help sites do their contracts and budgets, we help sites grow. Can a CRA really become a site owner? And it's actually if you're thinking it, you're definitely not the first. And yes, so the answer is yes. You can stop watching the video now if you don't want juicy details. But if you want juicy details, you stick around. This is what we do on the show. AI can't give you juicy details. AI can't spill the tea like your boy can. So stick around, but if you want the short answer, it's yes, CRAs can be site owners. Now, the more nuanced questions are, do CRAs make good site owners? Do CRAs make bad site owners? Do CRAs have any advantages, any disadvantages? Can CI still be CRA? Can CRAs still be CRAs while being a site owner? Is it ethical? Is it legal? Yikes. I don't think I'm touching the legal one. That's for Darshan. And you should look at your employment agreement and run it through an AI, run it through Google Gemini, run it through Grok, and ask it, this is my employment agreement. I want to start a research site. Are there any potential issues? This is not legal advice, this is not financial advice. But if you need help starting a site, Chris and I help. And we've helped many CRAs, dozens, within the last few years, actually. Do they make better site owners than others? Surprisingly, not necessarily. Now, from my anecdotal evidence, I think it's negligible. We've had CRAs start sites that done very well. We've had CRAs that started sites that failed. We've had non-research people start sites that have done very well. Non-research people that have started sites that failed. I don't think there is a correlation. However, on paper, there should be. And this is where I think everything, like the variable is actually you, the individual. Because on paper, you do have strengths as a CRA. Like you do know what a sponsor wants in a site. You know at least what a CRA wants in a site. You're probably disadvantaged in the sense that you think way too structured and way too linear, and having a site is very messy. And you're coming from an environment that has been structured, and you're going to like the Wild West where there is no structure. I mean, you're creating your own site. My site, Yuma Clinical Trials here in Yuma, it's 4 years old now. We're just starting to get some semblance of structure. We have an onboarding process for new staff. We have a quality assurance person. We don't have a regulatory person yet. It's just the coordinators. We don't have a recruiter or an admin. It's just whoever is kind of the most junior coordinator. Those things are going to change. We didn't really have a process for like things you don't even think about. Like, how do you update a PICV? Who's supposed to update a PICV? It's just kind of been whoever needs to do it at the time. And you got to create the architecture. You got to create the framework for the site. My tech stack is really your framework, is Creo, but you'll see that it's not enough. We've integrated Monday for project management workflow. I've started to automate some things, like certain emails trigger tasks within Monday. We use another tool called Patient Ace, which I'm a co-owner on. Shout out to my boy Ronick. That's for patient recruitment. And It does a lot of automated like things like pre-screenings, and you still need people to help. So the tools are making it easier. But as a CRA, you've never had to create and be the architect of these tools. You've kind of just followed your process, whatever CRO you worked at, whatever sponsor you worked at. You just follow the process and that's it. And now you're going to go from that to chaos. I mean, there is no structure until you make it. And chances are you're not going to make it until somebody asks you, well, like, or you run into an issue. Like, well, how do we do this? You're going to need a SOP. Now, my consulting firm helps with that. But ultimately, it's just a template. You're going to have to tweak it and make sure that you follow it. We tweak our own SOP all the time that we receive the same template that we give to other sites, but we customized it for ourselves based on the tech stacks we use, the workflow, what we expect as far as like what happens when a patient is lost to follow-up. How do you document those kind of things that you know as a CRA, like what to look for, but you're going to learn is a lot different when you got to actually do it yourself and you're pressured to make ends meet, pay the bills, pay the payroll. So let's get into some of this stuff. That's the long answer for there's not really an advantage on paper or in reality for a CRA. On paper there is, and I think the CRAs that have been successful actually as site owners, it was an advantage to them. Uh, and so what's the advantage? The advantage is actually in talking to PIs. So you're going to need, if you start a site, you're going to need PIs, and you're going to need multiple PIs if you want a business worth sustaining, because you need a diverse group of specialties, in my opinion, to start a site, to have a successful site. Now, you could be niche and just do rare disease and things like that, but I've never done that. I think it's relatively risky. I think I'm always looking to expand new specialists, expand in different territories geographically, or expand therapeutic areas. So as a CRA, PIs are going to find you credible because you know what you're doing. And you can even tell them, like, hey, these CRAs are going to come, make sure they're going to do what's called a site selection visit. Don't worry, doc. I used to do them all the time. I know what they're looking for. You're going to have that advantage. You're going to instill confidence in your PIs. Now, do you know the business? And that's where a lot of CRAs struggle. And CRAs, because you come from a structured world, you want structured contracts. How do I lock in my PI? Do you have a contract template? And the answer is no, I don't. I've always used an independent contractor agreement. And I've always suggested if me and the PI work well together, that we make them a partner, whether that's starting an LLC or making them an existing member of my LLC. We work something out. So you're gonna have to figure out the business stuff. You're gonna have to figure out the logistics stuff. Because in a CRO, you're aware of logistics, like IP needs to be stored. IP needs to be reconciled. IP needs to be um, accepted by the site. But like to actually do that, it's very different. You're gonna have to actually get in there, find cabinet space, find a secured area, figure out the temperature control. What happens during an excursion? It's not just checking a box quarantine. It's telling patients, hey, we gotta postpone your visit because we can't use our study drug. So those kind of things you're gonna have to learn. I think what a lot of CRAs struggle with, besides the business stuff, because they expect to have a turnkey solution, just like they did on their first day of their job. It's not gonna be that way. There's gonna be very little structure. You're gonna have to make it such. But as far as the operations are concerned, that should be your strength. Like quality at your site should be your strength. Now, the business development side stuff, right? Getting the PIs on board, striking deals with them, and then convincing sponsors why you're a good site. Now, there's an extra layer of nuance here. The ethical part. A lot of CRAs don't want to leave their jobs because they get paid well. And Jim Collins wrote a book on this. It's good to great. The enemy of great is good enough. So what keeps a lot of CRAs from even attempting to do their own businesses and stuff is that their jobs are good enough. They're safe enough. It's like golden handcuffed, basically. To leave that and start a new, like, risky venture is considered crazy. And so most don't even consider it. But then the brave ones that do, they rightfully ask themselves, well, can I do both? And I'm going to take ethics out of this because that gets tricky. Again, AI is your friend here. I hope you have your employment agreement. I hope you have an attorney you could run this through. If not, you have your friend Google Gemini or Grok or ChatGPT. It is possible. It's gonna get tricky because at some point you will need to quit. Now, I understand you don't want to quit right away, and that's understandable. That's fine. At some point, you will have to choose one or the other. And because of these technologies, like I just mentioned, Creo, shout out to Creo, sponsor of this podcast, and increased increased workflow efficiency tools like Monday and like Google Meets now you can just have a Google workspace where like you can integrate a bunch of stuff. Creo has helped our client CRAs create multi-million dollar sites. And many of them never quit their job until they just didn't need to work anymore. So at some point you will need to commit. And let's say you never want to leave your job because it's like you get paid too well. Well, someone's gonna have to do the work. Like you need a coordinator. Ideally, you are the coordinator because you're a CRA, you can do coordinating. You're gonna have to relearn if you've done it a while ago or learn from the beginning the patient interaction stuff. Very different skill set interacting with the patient than it is the skill set required to interact with a sponsor or a site. So you're gonna need a coordinator. Chances are you're not gonna have an experienced coordinator unless you're in a city where you can get one, but then guess what? You have to pay for it. And you're talking for an experienced coordinator, you're talking in some of these cities, 60, 70, 80K a year. If you want to go less than that, or if you go my strategy of like hiring for potential, which is in Yuma, we have to do it out of necessity. There aren't experienced coordinators, and I do not want people moving here and risking it all, uprooting their lives just to work for me. That's too much pressure on me as a startup. You're gonna have to have a onboarding system and train coordinators. Hey, this is our Creo. This is an informed consent. This is how we recruit. This is patient ACE. I'm in the middle of doing this now. Luckily, I have staff that is helping me out a lot. But in the beginning, you're not gonna have support. It's gonna be you. The first, really the first year and a half at my site, it was me and my business partner, nurse practitioner. And then we hired staff. Then we had to train them. And then we hired another staff, and then they didn't get along, so we had to figure that out and then bring in someone else. That one happened to have been experienced, but then she didn't last long because she moved to greener pastures because they offered her double the pay. And then we had to hire a brand new one, two, and three, and now our fourth one. All research naive. Over the years, you develop a system. But initially, you won't. Initially, you are the system. And that's your advantage and your disadvantage as the CRA. It's your advantage because you're aware of the fundamentals and you know what needs to get done, operationally at least. But you don't have the time because you're like these CRAs are getting paid pretty good money. So it's a catch 22 because yeah, you know what you need to do, but you're only human and there's so much time in the day. Now, these tools, this technology is working in your favor. It's making you be able to do more with less. But I think you're still gonna have to pick a time. I really think when you get that first site selection visit and you actually get the award letter and you know your site can enroll patients because you partnered with a PI where that is their bread and butter, or maybe you're using Patient Ace where you know you can get patients for that indication running ads, which we do for you. I think that's when you can decide to quit your job. Now, we have some clients that still don't quit their job at that point. They'll just take the risk and hire a coordinator and micromanage them through Creo and through Monday and through tools like that, which you can do. There's no right or wrong way to do this. I've seen it work when people have done this. CRAs have done this. I've seen it work when CRAs have not done this. But that is what I've seen anecdotally. It is possible, it is rewarding, and you will soon see. If you want to replace your salary as a CRA and you are willing to be the coordinator, so you don't, at least initially, so maybe you hire an assistant, and maybe that assistant, instead of paying 60K a year, you're paying 30. You can replace your salary with one or two studies where you randomize 8 to 10 patients per study. You can replace your salary as a CRA. Now, the trick is you got to be consistent and do it again year after year after year. But ideally, you're getting more than two studies a year. The hard part is getting studies consistently that you can consistently recruit on. And sometimes that's tough. I mean, this is year 4 for my site. We just came off year 3, a record-breaking year for revenue. Year 4, we're gonna not do that good revenue as year 3, but this is a record-breaking year for the number of studies we're ever gonna get so far. But they've been in study startup forever, not necessarily through any fault of our own. And we've just been kind of unlucky on the timing. We were a rescue site for some studies, and we were only given like 2 weeks to enroll on one of them, and another one got delayed. But we've been keeping afloat from the startup fees and from the previous revenues from the activity that we have ongoing studies, no that are not screening, but patients are ongoing. So you could replace your salary. The hard part's consistency and the hard part's growing it and managing that growth. But I think at that point, that's where a CRA's strengths actually shine. I have been a CRA. I've I those strengths definitely do help because I know how to talk to CRAs when there's issues at the site. When they have an issue with a study and a coordinator and it gets escalated to me because I'm the site director, I know how to talk to a CRA. And that's going to be your strengths too. The hard part's the business stuff and getting the ball rolling and making that commitment to like, okay, now I gotta, and you're basically, it's like a gamble, but it's like an educated gamble. I'm not going to quit my job yet. We have a PI, we have a site. I'm going to be the coordinator. That's my game plan. I applied for these 3 studies. This one wants to come do a site selection visit next month. If we get that one and maybe one of the other 2 I just applied for, like if I see the budget and I know we can at least get the startup fee, I can quit my job and do this. And then I don't need to hire a coordinator, I can just hire an assistant. Or, and I'm not saying which one's good or bad. This is a you problem, not a me problem. I'm just here talking. You can do the same thing. These 3 studies, okay, one site selection visit's coming up. Let's say I get 2 of these. I need to hire someone and train them. Maybe I'll train them on the weekends when I'm not working my CRA job, or I'll train them at night when I'm done with my job off the clock and just micromanage them because they're using these tools like Creo and Monday to where I can kind of be helpful. And yes, I'm gonna be stressed as shit. I'm gonna be burned out, because I'm a CRA, which is a high stress job as it is, and a site owner managing inexperienced staff, which is high stress as it is. I've seen both of those scenarios work. I've seen both of those scenarios not work. The variables, but is it possible? Yes. Do I recommend it? Yes. I think what's keeping a lot of CRAs from doing this is fear and that whole thing about good enough. Good enough to where I'm not gonna even attempt it. It's too risky. But if they only knew that it only takes two studies to replace your salary, and it's a lot less stress to be a site owner than it is to be a CRA once the revenue becomes predictable. I'm just talking the work stuff, not the finance stuff. It's a lot less stressful to be a site owner than a CRA. If just work, take finances aside. Once you throw finances in, if you over leverage yourself and your payroll's too big and you just lost some studies, it's gonna get stressful too. But I'm talking just the work wise, and you keep it simple initially until you're willing to take on more risk and expand. I think way more CRAs would do this. And I think that the industry is actually happy that that's not the case because there's still a shortage of experienced CRAs. So that's my thoughts on this. Again, I'm biased. I'm naturally inclined to be an entrepreneur. I am naturally inclined. I'm drawn to the chaos and to the excitement. I don't like structure. And so if that is you, you're more likely to succeed. If you do like all those stuff, structure and all that, that's great. But you got to get used to chaos because it's gonna be chaotic. Like, subscribe, comment, share. If you need help, we can help you. Message me, Dan at theclinicaltrialsguru.com, or text me 949-415-6256. Good luck. Bye-bye.